Fantastic. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lenine Liebenberg, and this is the Tuesday session of the Postgraduate Academy, a postgraduate support group meeting. Thank you for joining our session today. I see some new names, some old names. Welcome and welcome back. For any newcomers, the support group meetings are a very informal sessions. We present holistic approaches to enhancing our professional development in this forum. We really encourage interaction and engagement and participation. So please feel very comfortable to put any comments in the chat box, raise your hand if you'd like to speak, use your reaction icons to express some emotion or support for the content and the discussion. And those are the housekeeping rules, right? With that, I'll be handing over to Willie Thabo from our fantastic Student Support Services team at UKZN, and she will introduce our expert guests and this very important discussion today about academic bullying and harassment. Welcome, Willie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lenine. Thank you so much for having us on this platform again. So I'm going to leave my video on just a little bit and then I'm going to switch it off if that's okay with everyone. Oh, sorry, I was on mute. So greetings, colleagues and students. I'm Willie Thabo. I'm the student counselor in the College of Health Sciences. And it is my absolute pleasure on behalf of Student Support Services in the College of Health Science to facilitate a session on this topic of academic bullying and harassment. Over the years, the incidence of managing this aspect with our students has increased. We have seen the impact this has on our students and know that critical conversations on this is absolutely essential. So it is my pleasure to introduce you today to the team that will unpack aspects of bullying and harassment and strategies to respond to such actions and measures to cope. Today, we will hear from Ms. Karuna Mahadev, who is a candidate industrial psychologist with an interest in people development. And we have with us Dr. Nkosana Jafta, who is an academic leader of research in the School of Nursing and Public Health in the College of Health Sciences. His Dr. Jafta's responsibilities include ensuring quality research in the school and providing an excellent academic experience for postgraduate students. Grievances and complaints by students about supervisors are part of the issues that he mediates, and vice versa. So I will commence the session with a broad introduction. Incidents of bullying in its various types and forms, including cyberbullying, and are increasing even at institutions such as ours. The purpose of this Connect today is to assist you in recognizing what constitutes bullying and harassment and what you can do about it. This is a very broad topic and one that requires more than an hour to unpack in its entirety. However, today we will focus on that which is relevant to you in your current postgraduate journey. We will endeavor to help you understand the concepts, identify if and how you are affected, and consider strategies to address this in a proactive and progressive manner. A recent research that was recently published in the South African Medical Journal by a team from the University of Witwatersrand defines bullying as unwanted actions that cause offense and distress to others. And harassment covers a wide range of behavior of offensive nature. It is commonly understood as behavior that demeans and humiliates or embarrasses a person. Repeated harassment-related experiences may lead to poor emotional, mental, and physical health outcomes. Over time, harassment can feel traumatic, and it can lead to depression or anxiety, or symptoms that are related to post-traumatic stress disorder. So we have prepared a poll as an introduction on your thoughts and your experiences on bullying. And this will enable us to engage further with you and to expand on this topic. So we will allow you 2 minutes to actually complete the poll. It's not a long poll, so you can select your responses and do not forget to select submit at the end. And then we will share the results together and just talk around it for a moment.
Uli, can you confirm for me that the poll is showing?
Yes, the poll is showing. And we have 5 questions, 6, and the 7th one has several scenarios for you to choose from. So,
okay.
Yep. So I'll just help to just share what the questions are asking. The first one's asking, have you ever been bullied? Secondly, how were you bullied? And you could choose multiple responses. The third one is, have you ever bullied anyone? And the fourth is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how present is bullying at UKZN, with 1 being very little to 10 a lot. And then we have you, our fifth question, have you ever been afraid to attend or engage in social spaces because of bullying? And 6, would you like to advocate against bullying? And then 7th, we have several scenarios which we're wanting you to share with us whether you regard this as bullying and harassment. So you will select those that you consider to be bullying, harassment. And thank you. We already have 10% complete. So we're at 45% complete, and we'll leave the poll open for the next 30 seconds. So and then we can share the feedback. Lenine, we're still on 45%, and I'm wondering whether we should share. Okay, so I see you started sharing, and that's fine because of the time. So thank you for responding to the poll. And in terms of the feedback, we have 45% of the participants who completed the poll, and 40% of us have indicated that we have been bullied sometimes, with 20% on a tie of a lot and a little, and 20% also a tie saying no. Were you, and when we looked at about how you were bullied, there was 100% in terms of verbal, 40% financial, followed by 20% on physical. Have you ever bullied anyone? And we have 40% tie that says yes, with a 40 that says I don't know, and 20% saying no. On a scale of 1 to 10, let's look at how present is bullying at UKZN, and we have a 20% tie with 1, 2, and 3, which is on the lowest spectrum, with a 40% indicating that a 8, which is moving towards a lot. Have you ever been afraid to engage attend or engage in social spaces because of bullying? We have a 60% saying yes, and a 60% indicating, yes, I would like to advocate against bullying. And it would appear that majority of our respondents found that all of our scenarios, or most of our scenarios, were actually indication that bullying and harassment are present. So thank you for that. We can stop sharing the poll. I'm just going to do that. Thank you all for your participation and your responses. And bullying, and I think you can judge by the poll that bullying is far more common than many suspect. And in a workplace study, 75% of employees have either personally experienced or witnessed some form of bullying, some form of workplace misconduct during their working lives. Around 58% of staff at a local university's health science faculty, including those jointly working in public hospitals, report having been bullied more than once. 64% of respondents observed it happening to others. So there should never be any reason why one would bully another. The development of stereotypes and prejudices which form when one is young may shape an individual's worldview, and they may respond to that, or it could be due to a need to exert power and control. Bullying is very difficult for anyone to deal with. It makes one feel afraid and degraded, and often it makes a person feel worthless. Bullying is a criminal offense, and it must not be accepted. Bullying must always be taken seriously and never ignored. Some people believe that bullying builds character. It actually breaks down character and can cause depression, long-term psychological damage, and even result in suicide. You have a range of support options if you are a victim of bullying or a perpetrator. So keep speaking to people if you are not heard. And at UKZN, one may report incidents of bullying to either RMS or an ADO, an academic development officer, academic leaders, staff in the college, or student support services. The first person that you reach may not be the right person. So keep talking, keep speaking, keep reaching out to people until you receive the assistance you desire. Help is available in various spaces, and we need you to reach out for help to be able to address the bullying and harassment. So on this brief introduction, I hand over to Ms. Karuna Mahadev, who will take us through an in-depth discussion on bullying and unpack aspects that I have introduced you to now into greater depth. Thank you so much, and over to you, Karuna.
Thank you, Ms. Stava. I need to share my screen. If you'll bear with me for a second, colleagues. So welcome, and as Mrs. Stava has said, this is a very exciting session for us today because we're dealing with a topic called workplace bullying, and it is a topic that is shied away from very, very often. The aim of the session today is to help you define what bullying is, to identify the different types of workplace bullying, and to develop healthy communication styles when dealing with bullying. Now, by definition, okay, apologies, I inserted a slide a few minutes ago. I will give you a little case scenario. George is a 12-year-old boy who is dealing with school bullies daily. Sometimes he is shoved into a locker, his lunch is taken, at times he has a chair pulled out from under him. He also had his school books stolen and thrown in a dumpster. Now that's a typical scenario that you would commonly see on television because it's quite popular in the US. But what comes to your mind when you hear the word bullying? You can unmute yourself and feel free to speak. Colleagues, I cannot see you. If somebody's raising a hand. What comes to mind when you hear the word bullying? Hello?
Could I respond, Karuna?
Sure, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Exactly that picture listed on the screen. That is the first thing that comes to my mind. And you're right, because of media, even though I know that there are more examples of what bullying can be, that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Thank you, Lenine. Yes, so exactly that. When we hear bullying, we think being shoved in a locker, as we've seen on television so many times. Yuvedna has raised a hand. Would you like to say something, Yuvedna?
Hi. The bullying that I'm kind of familiar with, the first thing that comes to mind isn't actually physical. It's more online. So bullying to me, the first thing that pops into mind is someone sitting behind a screen and typing nasty things on the internet. That to me is the first thing I think of when I think of bullying.
Yeah, okay, cyberbullying. Yuvedna, thank you, and thank you, Lenine. Cyberbullying is actually quite harsh, eh? And because you can't see somebody, it might make it easier to just say whatever's on their mind. So Yuvedna, thank you. That's actually a very serious one as well. Anyone else? There's 3 in the chat. Let me just have a look, see. Okay, Mrs. Stavros also referred to cyberbullying as well. So when we hear about bullying, we have these concepts, which is the traditional types of bullying and cyberbullying now, which is becoming so popular due to social media. But in its definition, and essentially what bullying actually is repeated harmful mistreatment towards an employee, either by one person or group of people with a very specific intention of insulting or emotionally or physically harming a fellow colleague. And it is obviously perpetrated with the intent of injuring someone emotionally or physically. Now, the types of bullying that are frequent, but it's not limited to, of course, is verbal abuse, sabotage or interference which prevents you from getting your work done, behaving in a threatening, humiliating, or intimidating fashion, and exploitation of a known psychological or physical vulnerability. Now, the last one, I've seen quite a bit in instances with single parents where they're required to do, put in more hours or work longer hours, but there's always something dangling in front of them by the bully when they say, you're a single parent, you have to keep this job, so maybe put in the extra hours. And that's a very subtle way of using a psychological vulnerability against someone. I'm not sure if you've had a similar experience where something in your personal life has been used against you to
Elliot has a hand up, Karuna.
Thank you so much. What I can say is that I have experienced in the workplace a severe form of bullying, where I was, as a junior staff member.
you
Hello?
We can hear you, Elliot. See, Karuna has just dropped off. I'm sure she'll join.
Yes,
soon.
I'm still there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. You're welcome to continue. Thank
Yes,
you.
I was a junior staff member, having just completed training and joined, the professionals. The old staff I met there, they were men, and they started to ill-treat me. Especially one of them, but he would start talking with other seniors about me, telling them that I don't know my work. And then even when I had to change, work, a section to start working in another section, this person will call the person where I would be going to start working, and then tell the other person that hey, this young man here knows nothing and he's coming to work with you there. And and what he used to do, he would give me a big bunch of keys and tell me to go and get something from any of those, maybe in a storeroom, without actually orientating me about which key opens where. And then I would struggle trying to find the key. And then he would start shouting and telling me that I'm wasting time. It was quite difficult. And there were patients where I used to work. And it was like a psychiatric hospital. And then, I used to bring some radio some cassettes and play some music, as a kind of therapy for patients. They used to be very happy, they danced, they did all that. And then while I'm still busy with patients, when patients were still enjoying music, this man would come and chase patients and say, go out. And then I will be left all by myself. It was so painful. But I was able to understand, because I think as a student, I was, I came in terms of qualification. I was a little bit more qualified than these people I found there. And so I could understand that maybe that was contributing to the way they were treating me. So it was just like that. But what is good, I had good coping skills, because I could try and try to understand why they behaved the way they were behaving. And I would also verbalize to some of my colleagues about the type of treatment that I was receiving. So it was very tough, but I used to enjoy, to understand people, how they behave, and trying to understand why they behave the way they behaved. So I was able to cope. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Elliot. That's quite the story.
Indeed.
Okay.
Lenine, can I be heard? I lost a connectivity for a few
seconds. Yes, we noticed. You're back now, and you're welcome to continue.
Thank you, Lenine. Elliot, that was an amazing story, and thank you for sharing how you coped, because it's going to come into play in a few slides. And we're really sorry that you had to contend with that. But well, good on you for finding your strength to see it through. Now, one of the subject of academic bullying, and this happens in many of the institutes in South Africa, if you were to research it, you'd come up with a decent amount of research that actually supports that academic bullying does occur. And it's because of the culture of autonomy and everybody being so highly specialized at what they do, that becomes a little vacuum in power. The nature of the institute, which is the relationship between supervisors and supervisees, there's an immediate imbalance of power which takes place, which may result in bullying as well. And the institution may shield or protect the superstar academics who are guilty of bullying peers and staff. And we've seen it. We really have seen this. And the question is then, on the point of this workshop, is what do you do about it? And the following slides hopefully will address that. So for those of us, and during the poll you mentioned, or there was a question, are you guilty of bullying anyone? And while some of you were brave enough to say yes, some said, I don't know. Now, this applies to to whether you've been bullied or whether you are the bully in this equation. And look, it's not with judgment, it's about awareness. So the question is, have you ever experienced any of the following, or perhaps are perpetrating any of this? Yelling, or unreasonable, impossible deadlines being set for yourself or someone else? Are there rumors being spread about you? Have you been blocked from training or promotions? Is there constant criticism even when your work is good? Are you threatened with job loss? Has information which affects your performance been withheld? Are you subject to insults and put-downs? Your input and ideas were dismissed and you were denied your accomplishment? Have you been excluded from the group, mocked or laughed at repeatedly, or experienced any unwelcome sexual advances, either verbal or physical, conduct of a sexual nature? Now, in the poll, there wasn't an indication that anybody had been subject to sexual harassment, which is a positive thing. But yes, it does happen, and you don't need to contend with it. So yeah, if you can think about that, I think many of you have answered yes already. But if you're looking for an identifier, because sometimes we are not aware of when we may come across as bullying. And bullies emerge for a number of reasons. It could be the way we were raised, or the authority parents, or a religious system which keeps us disciplined, and that tends to spill over into a working environment where you want to impose the same on others, but it doesn't make it right. And that's the point of our workshop today. So bullying, however, does not include anything that's related to your outcomes at work, your performance. So if you're not delivering on a key performance area and reasonable action is taken by management to either discipline or counsel, dismiss or transfer an employee, is not necessarily bullying. It might just be the terms of contract that you've signed into. Mentoring and coaching, teaching someone how to perform a task is not necessarily bullying unless you're being humiliated and insulted during the process. So nobody's allowed to call you names while coaching and mentoring you. And nobody, essentially, if you leave an equation feeling belittled, something is wrong. Something is wrong with that transaction. And that is the telltale. So here's a little question for you, which you can tell me whether it's bullying or not. Jack works at a medical lab. He sometimes forgets to record and file the reports after he completes a test. His co-worker has to do it for him 2 or 3 times per week. She often reminds Jack to record and file reports, and she asks him things like, "Did you file the test report?" Or, "How's that report coming along, Jack?" Is this bullying, colleagues?
I think this is not.
You say it's not. Okay,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
because I think from the words that are being, from this communication, I see some kind of support, and, there's some kind of support, and, from the other colleague, because he seems to be aware that Jack seems not to be capable of, performing, because not recording it's very, I think it's very serious to perform a test and you end up forgetting to record. It's quite serious, and his colleague is trying to support him to to save him from trouble by trying to remind him how it goes. I think he's aware that Jack might be having a problem, but I don't see any bullying here myself.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. That's absolutely correct. You're absolutely right. This is an example of performance-based, a task that needs to be performed, and he has been reminded by a colleague. And you're right, it's actually to his detriment should he not file that report. So This is just a colleague egging another one along to do what he's supposed to. Thank you, sir. Lenine, you've raised a hand. Would you like to say something?
I do, actually. I was wondering about, body language over here. I mean, we're reading these words, and initially I thought, this seems constructive and supportive, but it also depends on how this thing is said. When this woman looks at him, is it with this snarky expression? Did you file that test report? Or, is there some sort of negativity that could be projected within her body language that's they could be misconstrued?
You're absolutely right. It's the tone. It's the tone that does everything, that damages or yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So it could be seen either way, depending on her tone, is what you're saying, Lenine?
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely. So for those of us listening in, kindly note that even if we are egging along, maybe some kindness injected into our tone would save the day. Willie's also got her hand raised. Willie?
So, Karuna, I was looking at it also from the other perspective. Here is a co-worker who's also frequently reminding Jack that this is something that needs to be done in terms of the scope of the work. And Jack seems to constantly not be doing it, and the co-worker has to pick up on it. Is that subtly his way of, if you look at a type of, bullying and undermining what is expected of him in his role?
Absolutely. Yeah. From that angle as well, it's a subtle way. What you're saying is that Jack could be covertly bullying her or disrespecting her by saying, oh, you'll do it anyway. I'm just going to carry on with my life. Awesome. Yeah. I like the way every view is coming in on this. And absolutely. So would it be fair to say that bullying is subject to interpretation?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Lovely. Okay. It's actually dangerous territory, though, when we start unpacking it this way. But let's look at the next example. Muvhango is a smart, hardworking scientist who is reserved and does not engage in social situations at work. Muvhango sometimes struggles in conversation as he fears he might say things that others view as strange or different. Muvhango has a colleague, Stephen, who asks him personal questions daily. Stephen asks about culture, hobbies, and interests. He often smirks and laughs when asking questions about Muvhango's hometown in Kenya. Is this an example of bullying?
I'm very sensitive to body language, so I would say yes.
Remember, in defining bullying, anything that intimidates or is said as a put down. So is Steve trying to put him down in some way by his body language, like you say, Lenine?
And to me, this concept of smirking and laughing at someone else's expense, to me, I would classify that as bullying.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? There's someone in the chat. Okay, that was Lenine. No other takers. So Lenine says...
So there is feedback in the chat, Karuna, from Yuvedna. She says, yes, it may even be the reason Muvhango chooses not to engage in social interactions at work.
Yes. Okay, Yuvedna. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's true. So if every time they're going to mock and laugh at you, it's a way of excluding him. So too, Yuvedna and Lenine both say that this is an example of bullying, and I would agree with them. So thank you, ladies, for that. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so dealing with bullying. And I do mention that it needs to be dealt with at an institutional level. And this is organization-wide. Now, should you wish to rally support from the institution, it needs to go through the channels in that human resources needs to become involved. Heads of department, directors need to be involved. We need to put forward a case as to why this is a problem and how the institution can actually help us in creating an awareness. It's nice to have campaigns, not just a once-off, but an annual declared anti-bullying month, or ideas where you can constantly bring the message home so that the institution can incorporate this into its organizational culture, that it's got a zero tolerance on bullying. Departmental level, yes, you can speak to your colleagues, your heads of department, and do it specifically at the level of your department, where you declare your office region a no bullying region, or a bully-free zone, and obviously at an individual level. Now, at an individual level, okay, before we proceed to that, can I just ask very quickly, how much does anybody know about the Bill of Rights, the UKZN Transformation Charter, and the reached principles that UKZN holds dear to them? Does anybody know much about these? Bill of Rights, guys, anyone? UKZN Transformational Charter, ring any bells? Reached principles? Okay, Lenine, you're not allowed to answer. No.
I'm very embarrassed at my own answer, actually.
What is it? Please tell me.
I remember the Bill of Rights from school days. We were handed, constitutions to go through. I remember being in primary school, and I think that might have been the last time that I actually really engaged with the Bill of Rights.
I'm scared to ask, Lenine. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm scared to ask, what year was that in, and which Bill of Rights was it?
I will never forget. No, it was 1995. So bad,
okay,
so bad.
Okay, no, that's not bad. Okay, the reason why we're asking about Bill of Rights in the UK, thank you, Lenine, and the UKZN Transformation Charter is because South Africa, glorious as it is, has the Constitution enshrined into our acts. So our Employment Act, many of the acts that we have, and we have so very many to protect the rights of an employee, has our constitutional rights embedded within it. Section 10 of our constitutional rights says everyone has inherent dignity and the right to have their dignity respected and protected. Now, this is what you're using in creating your argument against bullying. And if you have no other resources, this is your important one, that you have the right to respect and dignity, and that no one can take away from you because it is your constitutional right. Within UKZN, and UKZN has committed themselves to the principles and values enshrined in the Constitution, and it speaks of human dignity and the achievement of equality. Now, again, if there's a violation of that, you're being bullied, you're being intimidated, you're being humiliated, your right to human dignity is being violated. And yes, you do have a right to say something about it. Specifically, if it's been perpetrated by UKZN itself. So please become aware that there is a charter that protects you. We do have a constitutional right. There's employment equity. As a student, you would lean on those two. And I think Mrs. Stubber will tell us if the students have any kind of separate Bill of Rights that they have that UKZN is advocating for. But in the meantime, you do have some very powerful acts that are protecting you and your rights. Now, the REACH principles that UKZN, or values that they subscribe to, are those of respect, excellence, accountability, client orientation, honesty, and trust. Now, having worked at UKZN, I have experienced this, where if we go against the grain of respect and excellence in the way we talk to each other, we can be called up into a disciplinary hearing on the basis of it. And Lenine and Willie, I don't know if you'll be able to support me on this, but UKZN does actually hold their values very close to their heart. So if anyone feels that the REACH principles are being violated, please speak up. You have a right to. The university has given you that right. Yes, your positions. Now, we've spoken about positions in conflict, and I know I'm fast running out of time. I've got 5 more minutes. Your conflict management styles. Now we've heard in weeks that have passed that we've got competing, collaborating, compromising, avoiding and accommodating types of ways of dealing with conflict. More often than not, and research has shown that people assume avoiding and accommodating behaviors will actually get rid of the bully, when indeed collaboration is the ideal state that you want to be in. But it's sometimes it's a fallacy for many people. It's easier to avoid and just to be accommodating of bullying behavior. So the question is, how can you employ effective communication skills when dealing with bullying? And the first thing to do is to talk to your colleagues, especially if they're all subject to the same kind of treatment. Review your organization's policy on bullying behavior. Together, you can look at it and you can extract some points that apply to you on how you should be treated versus how you are being treated. If there's no policy that explicitly deals with bullying, create one with your team and start creating an awareness on the characteristics of bullying. And this is an important one because many a time people do not know what bullying actually means. So yes, if your work is being sabotaged, if information is being withheld deliberately, you're asking for reports or something, and 3 days later, you're still asking the same question, that could be as a result of bullying behavior. So become aware of the characteristics of that which makes up bullying, and you become wiser for it. I would strongly suggest posters, putting up posters in as many places as possible so that people are aware. And perhaps if you catch your friend losing their temper a little with a student, you can gently point them in the direction of the poster and say, you know what, note to self, this is what we're doing and it's not appropriate. The next step would be to prepare to confront the bully and hold them accountable. So, and this is where what Elliot said earlier makes all the difference. He relied on his own coping methods to get him through a very difficult situation. So, colleagues, I would urge you to bring your attention to your own self-confidence when dealing with bully. Remember, they're powerful because at some level we might allow them to hold that power. Bullying is a power game, and so your own self-confidence starts to it starts to corrode at you. So gaining back your own self-confidence is important, especially when you're trying to confront them. And what I've suggested here is to celebrate your own victories. And this is in your quiet space. Think about everything that you've done that's great, your work, your contribution. Reflect on all of the things that have gone well for you and start to internalize it. So basically, it's an internal mantra that I've done these great things. I'm respected for it. I'm capable. And so you're building your self-confidence before tackling the situation. And when you do, you're speaking to the bully about the situation, their behavior, and the impact that it's had. So we're not attacking them personally, but we're structuring information around what has occurred. And using assertiveness and kindness, explain why good manners are important and list behaviors that need to change in order for the bully to have a better relationship with you and the rest of the team. Let your voice carry a tone of empathy and compassion for the situation. Now, you may wonder, I'm being bullied. Why must I be the bigger person in this equation? Because of a number of situations, you don't want to lose your job, but at the same time, you don't want to lose your mind. And looking for a job isn't as easy. So how can we deal with what we have right now is the question. And hopefully by the end of this, you will be confident enough to tackle it head on. Now, there's an example of being assertive. An abusive coworker says, Kate, I noticed that you submitted your report to the marketing department. You're wrong again, and I'm fed up with constantly telling you new people what to do. Now, Christine has taken this stance, and she says, I understand how taxing our mistakes must be. She's extending empathy. Would it be fair to suggest that you send out an email that explains where departments should send their month-end summaries to? And what she's done is clearly just smuggled in an instruction on how to avoid that going forward. So Kate doesn't take it personally. She asserts herself. while extending empathy and asking for clarity. Here's a quotation from John E. Richardson and Linnea McCaw, that bullies are cowards and are driven by deep-seated insecurities and fears of inadequacy. They intentionally wage a covert war against organizations' best employees, those who are highly skilled, intelligent, creative, ethical, able to work well with others, and independent, that is, those who refuse to be subservient and controlled by others. If you keep this in mind, and if you keep feeding this into yourself, in that I am capable, I'm intelligent, just like what Elliot was saying, he suspected that he was being bullied because he was good at what he did. Draw the attention back to yourself. Yes, you will be triumphant. There's a small activity here. Do we have time to actually review this, Willie? And I think it's time for Dr. Jafta now, hey?
That's correct, Karana. It's actually into Dr. Jafta's time now, yeah. Perhaps we could share this in the chat space, and students can take this activity away.
Certainly. I could send the slides and they could reflect on this. Just 1 second to round up. This activity will actually help you to take power away from the bully. They won't be as big anymore. Once you focus on this, you'll be taking back your power if you can just give it some thought. So I'd really rather you focus some attention on it. If you need any assistance with this any further, the Student Support Services Department is there. And even you're free to contact me as well if you want to talk about this some more. And with that said, I will bid you adieu, and it's over to Dr. Jafta. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Karuna. And I think that was absolutely valuable. And I did say at the very beginning that an hour isn't enough to unpack the aspects around bullying and harassment in its entirety. So it seems like we would need to have more conversations on this. But I'd like to hand over to Dr. Jafta, who is our academic leader in research, and will be able to share greater insight into the academic bullying and harassment within the context of UKZN.
Thanks, Uli. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, everyone on the call. Yeah, this was a bit of a, I just switched on my camera just for people to see that I'm not a ChatGPT character. I'm the real person. I know. So yeah, I was asked to talk to this issue of academic bullying. I think my role in this talk is just to highlight what are the policies or whatever is in the university, in the university's books on addressing bullying and harassment. Unfortunately, there is not much. But what, as Karuna has just pointed out, there is a, if you go to UKZN, sorry about that, if you go to UKZN, you look at its vision. Its vision is grounded on rich values, and one of those rich values is respect, which is meant to promote mutual respect, courtesy, and inclusiveness, and also the trust. So I use these two values just as a start, because if there is a supervisor, there is a student, and a student-supervisor relationship will be mostly be grounded on these two values. Not that others are not applicable, they are, but these two are usually ones. If there is a breakdown, those are the two that are usually on the forefront of that relationship. And another thing is that with the university, it's on its so-called strategic planning, and the strategic plan is for 2023 to 2032. One of the things that are highlighted out of the 5 points or 5 broader action items, there is to provide excellent teaching and learning, and also another one is to provide excellent student experience. That becomes important for the institution to see those through, because if a student is not does not experience excellent or a good environment in the institution, the likelihood is that has a spillover. They won't recommend anyone to come back. They want to come to UKZN to study and so forth. And also the teaching and learning is important, because from the supervisor's position is that they must produce a graduate that has the skills that are needed out there in the world. So you will find this conflicting thing. Maybe a supervisor wants more out of the student, but how to get that, then it becomes a conflict for the student, or a student usually feels aggrieved. I have put this structure because some of the things I know students don't understand how the structures are. They just know there is a dean somewhere, there is a HOD, there is a head of school somewhere, there is a head of HOD somewhere. But this is a structure of a school structure in the university. You'll find that each college has different schools, and within those schools, there are disciplines. So a school is made out of disciplines. The school is headed by a dean or a head of school. And there are disciplines. Each discipline is headed by a head of discipline, usually what we used to call HOD, head of departments. Within those departments or disciplines, you'll find that there are academics who supervise students, usually, and then assisting the dean, there's an academic leader of teaching and learning, and there's also an academic leader of research. The academic leader of research usually reports directly to the dean or the head of school. And it also works closely with the college dean of research. So if there's any dispute or any conflicts that happen to land at the academic leader of research, that conflict is likely to be resolved there. If it's bigger than that, then it's escalated to the dean or the college dean of research. So it's important that between the supervisor and the student, they try to resolve the issue. If it's not resolved, usually there is a discipline academic leader or a research coordinator or a postgraduate coordinator in that discipline. If that is not resolved, it's taken up to the head of discipline. This is not usually as easy as I'm saying it now, because the chances are that maybe a student is not comfortable taking that to the discipline academic leader. They want it to be outside the discipline, so they will take it up to the academic leader of research. Sometimes they will go, in all this, there is student support, and the student support has to, I think for students, usually that's where they could get an advice on how to approach whatever challenge they have. So having said that, there are documents that are relevant, but they are not very specific on harassment or on bullying per se. But the only one that is very specific is the one on sexual harassment, which is a sexual harassment policy of the institution. A handbook usually is very important for the student because it's where the rules come in. Usually the conflicts will come from that rule book or how the student and the supervisor disagree. Sometimes it comes, if you look at the handbook, you'll find that some of the issues that they are in dispute with is supposed to be in the handbook. But also the College of Health Sciences, also other colleges at UKZN have what is called a student supervisor MOU. That MOU, every postgraduate student is supposed to have signed it, have read it, understand it, discussed it with the supervisor. It has some responsibilities for the supervisor, some responsibilities for the student. So I think if there is a new version that has just been circulated by the College Dean of Research. I'm not sure whether it has been circulated up to the students, but you can look at that. But I think most people here have signed the older version. And then there is a sexual harassment procedure guidelines. These were, I think they were compiled in about 2016, but they've been revised in 2020. The purpose of those guidelines or of that policy is to one, give direction on how, if someone experiences sexual harassment, has to go about. It's not prescriptive, so it doesn't mean that, for example, when it says you should report to the next line manager or to the next person, that is the HOD, you should prescribably go that. Again, it's about how you feel about that. If you think that maybe the HOD, I'm not very comfortable in reporting to them, let me go to the higher structure or to the students' support services. Those are the channels that you can take. So just to give you the MOU between student and supervisor, it has a section there that explains how to deal with a conflict between a supervisor. It says, one, if there is a conflict, the student and the supervisor must try and resolve it. If they are not able to do that, they must approach a research leader. The research leader could be within the discipline, or they can go straight to the school research leader, which is outside the discipline they are affiliated to. If that fails or there's a conflict, they can approach the dean and the head of school. If the head of school has a conflict, then they can approach the college dean of research. And at that level of a dean and the head of school or the college dean of research, this should be finalized. So just a picture showing how it should be. If a supervisor and a student have a conflict, they will approach a research leader. If it's not resolved there, the research leader can escalate that to the dean and the dean of research. It's not linear. In between, someone can go and go to support services and seek advice there. And if the support, whatever they, maybe as time goes on, they feel like the research leader is not an appropriate person, or they want to take it much further, they can just go straight to the Dean of Research or head of school. The sexual harassment policy, when what it does it seeks to promote a secure and work environment with dignity for all persons. This is what it is designed to do, and it applies to all UKZN staff, students, visitors, even third parties who come as constructors in the institution. So if a student interacts with a third party, a contractor, and they feel like they are harassed or bullied, they have a right to take it up take this up with whoever is relevant or is meant to address this. Sorry. The thing about this sexual harassment policy is that it suggests 3 possible stages, but again, these are not linear. I know when I read it that I wasn't feeling very comfortable about one of the things that, for example, if someone is harassed, they should raise that with the person who is harassing them. It is not formal, like Karuna was saying. You have, maybe as a student, you have to have a way of dealing with that situation. One of them is to raise with the person. But sometimes if you don't have that confidence, or you are not able to do that, then you must seek an alternative dispute resolution. That one is when you take it up with the next person, either a research leader or an HOD. If that is not resolved, then you can take it up formally as late as a complaint, in a sense, as a charge, if I may use that word. Having said that, there are usually outcomes in whatever complaints we see. One of them is that usually students ask for a change of supervision. One thing I've learned is that I don't evaluate whether the reason for requesting change of supervision I think is valid or not. If a student is not comfortable, or they think that whatever relationship they have with the supervisor is not worthy, they want to change the supervisor, in our school, we grant that with no questions. So, but sometimes that would delay the student a bit because we have to find a supervisor, but we don't question whether we think that the reasons are valid or not. There is a student recently who asked for a change of supervision. Her reason, one of them, was that the manner of approach, behavior, and tone of voice that the supervisor is using when communicating with her is very demeaning, and she asked for a change of supervision. We granted that, and the supervisor, fortunately, also felt that the relationship is broken, so the supervisor agreed to part ways. It's not that if she was, or the supervisor was not agreeing, we would have said, okay, let's negotiate. We wouldn't have done that. Another thing is that with the complaints or with the resolution that usually come, is sometimes it ends up with a formal complaint or a charge being laid within the UKZN. Could be laid with the HR, or it could be laid with other forums that deal with complaints within the institution. if the conduct is serious and it borders on criminality, a student has a right to take it out to external institutions like courts, if it gets to that. The UKZN doesn't say you should deal with this here first and not take it out to the courts. Even whilst at UKZN, they are still dealing with it. And if you feel like you want to press charges or criminal charges against the person, you can do that. I've tried to rush through this. Thank you. Yeah, I tried to do it as brief as possible. Are there any questions? I hope I didn't go over time that much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jafta. I mean, we did go over a little bit of time, but the content was so important and so relevant. I mean, we allow it, we appreciate it. And the session is going to be, is recorded and will be shared. So anybody who unfortunately missed the session live will be able to revisit the content that you've just discussed. Thank you so much for the clarity in the message over here. The floor is open for questions to Dr. Jafta and to Karuna as well, as opposed to Wooly, too, regarding this very important topic, academic bullying and harassment. Any questions or comments? And no, Elliot. Elliot
Yes.
must have a question. Please go ahead.
It's not a question, it's just a comment. I think this is a very interesting presentation, because I was not aware that I was bullied while I was still working while I was still at the workplace. But I could see that I had challenges, and then I was also trying to use my coping skills to overcome those challenges. But now, as we are discussing this, I could see that I thought I had totally handled, but I could feel the feelings coming back, and I could feel that emotional pain that, hey, this was very serious. So I would say thank you for this presentation, and also thank you, Dr. Jafta, for the way forward, that when you actually feel that you are being bullied, what is the way forward? What next? What is the next step that you should take? Yeah, that is all I can say now.
Thank you so much, Elliot. Thanks for your comment. And I suppose to everybody else within this this forum, Wooly's initial point right up front was that bullying can take its toll on us. It seriously affects our productivity, and we need as much support as possible. She's provided us with the contact details for student support services to assist if you do feel that you are being bullied. And I see Karuna during her presentation has also made herself available in the chat box, chs.sss@ukzn.ac.za. Please do not feel that you are alone. This session has also described the procedures put in place in order to report. I think the most important part for me was that knowing that there is, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There is a procedure. There are consequences for bullies. Find the support within this group, within the SSS, if you do feel that you are being bullied, and call it out if you can. Thank you so much to the participants of the session, to our presenters. This has been a very important, very sensitive, very relevant topic. and I'm glad that it was showcased within this forum. Thank you for your participation, and we'll see you next week for another session within the Postgraduate Academy. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Lenine.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thanks.
Caroline.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
Dr. Jafta. Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.